Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a lovely day. So, what I wanted to talk about today is the recent Fortnite situation in regards to Darth Vader, in regards to what has been happening. Obviously, for reasons, as I will say, just reasons, I will not be playing the audio. However, Darth Vader in Fortnite is a thing. Obviously, Fortnite having a bunch of crossovers. Disney, oh yeah, let's have some funny Darth Vader in the game. And first off, I want to get out of the way. As far as I'm aware, what I've heard, and I would appreciate substantiation on this point in regards to AI recreations of voices and the ethics of using them. From what I understand, James Earl Jones and his family, by extension, allegedly, from what I understand, did give authorization and consent to use his voice. So that will not be a talking point throughout. Obviously, there is contention in regards to, active, voice actor strikes because of disturbing trends such as companies, corporations, and entities, etc., just wanting to pay a one-time nominal fee to be able to infinitely use a actress's voice, to which is its own contention. And I myself do fall on the side of, you make sure you're paying your artists. They at the very least deserve royalties if you're going to use them ad infinitum. However, that will not be a point in today's. What I'm mostly going to talk about today is Disney's duty of care in a situation like this, where something like this, you have to understand, it goes through many checks and balances, right? It's got to go through legal. There's many meetings this has to go through. There's many people, personnel, and departments this has to go through before something like this goes live, right? It's not like one day someone like Disney would decide, oh, hey, I'm Mickey Mouse and I need to, we need to Darth Vader into Fortnite, right? It's not like that happens and it's just like 2 days later, right? Sure, I'm sure there are instances where it could happen like that, and I'm sure that there's a race against the clock, but ideally, generally, things like this happen on a grander scale, right? Having a TCG tournament over the course of say like a world level tournament. I mean, planning starts at least 6 to 8 months beforehand. You got to book the venue. You got to make sure to have enough staffing. You need to make sure that the environment's what you need it to be, et cetera, et cetera. And even then, things like that can get postponed or altered depending on certain events, such as, I don't know, if a wildfire strips to the venue, you're not necessarily going to have an event in a burnt out venue, are you not? Right? Pretty logical things, right? So all these are generally in advance, by months, even up to a year in some cases. So this was something that was in the pipeline for a hot minute. I would argue, I think, in a good faith, common sense capacity. And for us as gamers, look, we're no stranger to certain words and certain phrases and certain things being thrown at us. I mean, personally, some people say that that's just part of gaming, right? And I have experienced things on Xbox Live, things that I probably shouldn't have, things I've been told on Xbox Live that I probably shouldn't have. But it's different if it's some Joe Schmo on the internet, some random, right, who calls you some flavorful language, and you can just write them off as like, this guy's just an idiot, okay, right? But when it ends up coming from both Epic Games and both Disney, some very, very big names, and you have some less than savory things said, okay? Like if Darth Vader says I have a skill issue, whatever, right? It's funny game, right? I'm not necessarily this thin-skinned person, whatever, right? Sure, I get contentious on things, but for all intents and purposes, right? Personal opinions are personal opinions. Now, when we do start talking about, calling people slurs and stuff like that, especially when your game is rated for, ESRB, somewhere in like 13, rated T, that's when I start to get a little different, right? So I would expect certain colorful language out of a game like Grand Theft Auto, and I'm sure some people might, if it's not in the base game, probably have mods help augment the experience. Not that I can advocate for that, but as people probably do, and it fits more at home in a game like that. If it, the derogatory term, quote unquote, split lip fits at home in Halo, does it not? So we have things like that where being that M rating does kind of change things a little bit. And it has been pitched to me that Fortnite's demographic, while it is kind of aimed at a younger generation, is more, adults, like some 60-odd% of players allegedly is like, in their 20s and above. I would have to honestly have statistics on that. But I think that the important thing to note here is also that the rating does and also the target demographic does come to mind here. Now, Pokemon, we've argued in the past, and I promise this is a relevant segue really quick, is a game that is marketed towards, you guessed it, children. Does it make sense for Pokemon to have certain colorful language or have certain themes present in the game, even though adults, could probably, see what they're doing, get some enjoyment out of it, etc., right? There are certain themes that Pokemon will not touch, reasonably so, and I assume that certain colorful language, obviously even not a one-to-one form, but having some sort of a derogatory remark at a group of characters, probably not in Pokemon's best interest as a company, right? Especially as they are marketed towards as mainly children, and that is an important thing to remember. So coming back to this, especially if you are having a main market, a main focus on, an underage demographic, children, if you will, there are certain expectations. And we've talked about before how AI is not this perfect thing, right? And we've we've gone over a very real example. I believe it was in a Fat Files reaction where we sent a good faith, this is how you make AI hallucinate, right? And it was talking about how do you cook a chicken, right? And it was talking about cooking a chicken to 135 degrees Fahrenheit and make sure you ask Goku if you need help. And it's clearly pulling from certain things like Reddit shitposts and stuff. So you take a look at things like that and how easy it is to manipulate AI, hallucinate AI. And this is an any percent speed run to getting banned and or having a controversy. We look at Neurosama, right? VTuber, right? Not that I have any problem with Neurosama. Version 1.0, for all intents and purposes, was a Twitch any percent speed run ban, right? And obviously things got addressed later, things progressed, etc. But when we have technology like this that we know can be manipulated and abused, and we have, things like cars, furniture, etc., are recalled for far less serious, issues with it, right? I think that there is a duty of care on the company, especially because when this does go through meetings, when this does go through specialists, there is going to be an acknowledgement of, okay, this can happen, but we're willing to accept from a cost-benefit analysis. So I think that it's interesting to look at. I think that this is interesting to look at from the perspective of what is going on. What is going on specifically with the targeted demographic, mainly being children. I think this is going to be interesting in regards to precedent this sets for game going forward. I am fully expecting, Captain Price, Soak McTavish, AI voice bots, or maybe like Ghost voice bot, right? In something like Warzone, because as far as I'm aware, Warzone is doing okay. It's not doing super hot. People are kind of hopping off that Call of Duty train. Personally, the last game I played was Modern Warfare 2, 20, whatever, the new one, and I just kind of fell off after that. It's not really my interest. I'll go back and play OG Modern Warfare 2 if I really wanted a Call of Duty game, but that's beside the point. And I think that when inevitably we have PR to try and downplay this, inevitably we have excuses, especially you as a parent. I think you as a parent, especially if you allow your child to play Fortnite, should have an opinion about these things. Hi, I am John Doe. I am Jane Doe, and I have a child. Going into this, being able to play a game like this, I do have issues. Now, the other issue does come down to ES online interactions not rated by ESRB. Obviously, that's the thing I'm sure many of you gamers are going to be familiar with, right? And that's kind of a cop-out legal, like, look, if somebody calls you a colorful slur over Xbox Live, online interactions are not rated by ESRB if you're playing, say, a game like Halo or Gears of War, right? So that also does play a part as well. But while that is a legal disclosure, in my opinion, you as a parent should still have the ability to be upset at things like this. And when things like this do happen, am I saying we need to sterilize everything? No. This is one of the things are going to happen anyways. As a parent, you should be monitoring your child anyways, obviously. And there's many different opinions on that. I'll leave that to parents in the audience to really discuss. But the thing to keep in mind here is that this is not some random company. This is Disney and this is Epic. And their names reasonably should be attached to this until they find a fix. And even then, this should be remembered, as well as what precedent this is going to cause because of this. But I digress. Come to your own conclusion. You're free to think everyone's a bunch of snowflakes. That's entirely your prerogative. I personally would disagree with that. I think we should be angry about things like this. I think we should be angry about AI, generative AI, becoming more and more a thing. Somebody could have voiced this, but no, we have to have an AI rendition of this. And then we're going to have more and more game studios hop onto tech like this, where maybe Commander Shepard, maybe they didn't want to hire him back, and therefore a new Mass Effect game or some remaster down the line again of the Mass Effect trilogy is going to have AI Shepard with additional voice lines, right? How much is enough? And I think that people do need to be making a big stink about this, obviously in a reasonable capacity, not that it overtakes your life, not that but to be able to say this is not okay, or this is my opinion on that, this needs to change, and to once again hold people, entities, companies, corporations, etc., accountable for said actions, because this is clearly a cognizant choice. But I digress. Come to your own educated conclusion on the subject. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.